Welcome back to Getting Started with Linux. I'm your host, Daniel Lowrie, and today we are going to look at file specifics, joined by the one and only Ross Brunson. Ross, glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Now, we've looked at files a little bit, kind of, I see a theme building here where we introduce us to something, and then we look under the covers a little further.
Sure.
So let's do that with files. Obviously, they're a very important part of our day. We need to be able to do stuff with them. We need to understand things about them. But what specific are we going to talk about in this episode?
Well, if you remember in previous episodes, we talked about the file command. The file command is a great way to investigate what is actually in a file. Because a couple of things that are really important here when we're dealing with files is there is no requirement for there to be an extension. So finding a file that says, whatever it happens to be, and there's no extension to it, that you're missing a cue that you typically see on other operating systems, like where it says exe or .sh for shells or something like that, .bmp for a graphics file. So that's one thing that you may not see. I think that if you're not putting extensions on your files, you're missing the last part of elegant. Frankly, it's just a good thing because then if I'm in a directory or whatever, I can sort and search by, ls *.sh. Shows me all the script files. Whereas otherwise I might have to do it a different way. And I think that it's very important that we as sysadmins and engineers who are working on these systems follow the conventions and try not to get, lazy about it and do things the right way. The other thing that's a little interesting is when you look at the files and how they can be named, you can have extremely long names for Linux files. They can have multiple dots in them. They can have underscores. They can have all kinds of characters. The thing that they can't have would be a backslash or a forward slash. So the moment that you put a backslash in, the backslash says, please ignore the next character. It's known as escaping a character. So it's not really a file name. And also, when you look on Windows systems, backslash happens to be the thing that separates the directories and the files. On our side, the forward slash is what separates the directories and the files. Okay? And the other thing is that the file names can begin with numbers. Some old systems didn't allow you to do that. And you can have as many dots as you want in a file name. You could make almost the whole thing be dots. Now, you shouldn't do that. It's not a really good thing. But if you want to use naming like, some sort of project dot and then the part of the project dot and then the chapter kind of thing. So a lot of people will do book title or ISBN dot chapter dot and then whatever it happens to be.
All right.
Okay. So those are some of the things that we really like to use. Another thing that's important is to realize just how much file management you're going to do as a Linux system administrator or developer or whatever you do.
Kind of our bread and butter, huh?
It is. There's just so many things that need to be done on a consistent basis that having an understanding and a mastery of developing commands, like we talked about, how to put the commands together, and then how to move files, copy them, create directories, that kind of thing. So our next episodes are going to pretty much cover the basics of file and directory management, and that'll take us for a little ways.
Great stuff, Ross. I did have a question for you, though. You were talking about how we as admins can get just a little bit lazy, and we'll sometimes not put extensions on because we're stupid like that.
Because, of course, we would know.
Yeah, I know what it is. How do you not know?
Not the poor person.
But you might be looking for it, right? How would you find those files? Like if you're looking for JPEGs or whatever it is.
We'll use and that's just such a terrible thing to do, to not
you would never do
put
that.
An extension on something that you know what it is.
Yeah.
But one thing that we can do, and let's switch over to the machine, is we can use the file command. File command is our friend because it's once again going to read the headers. And so, for example, if we go into somewhere like Etsy that has a lot of files in it, and so we just do a quick ls, there's all kinds of stuff in here. And I may or may not know, like this right here, the passwd. Well, I happen to know what that is,
right?
But it doesn't have an extension. And because it doesn't have an extension, if it's a file that has a less important name, I may not know. So what I can do is I can use that file command, so file and then go asterisk. File asterisk is going to go and read the header of every single file that's in this directory and come back and show me what kind of file it is. So for example, we see this is an ASCII text file and it uses character return line feeds and it's got line terminators. This is important because I need to know this in order to be able to edit it properly. We'll also see that we have directories like X11 and Wicked down here. But if we scroll back up, we might see like regular file. There's no read permission on that. So it'll tell us what the kind of file is, and what we can do is we can filter this output to find things that we want. So for example, I might want to find, let's pick on the Algol 68 source here. So
the old Algo
we'll
68,
remember that,
man.
right? So we file asterisk, and then we pipe that, and we use the grep, which is just a filter.
Right.
And so when we use grep, and we're not sure if there's upper or lowercase characters, we use a -I, and that says case insensitive, right? So then what we'll do is we'll look for Algol, because that was a piece of a phrase that we remembered from something. And it comes back, and there happens to be only one of those.
Excellent.
But at least it tells me what it is. Now, keeping in mind that we now have output, we might be able to redirect this to something else. Like, let's say we want to see all of the files that happen to be conf files. So if we up arrow and we decide that we're going to .conf, then it comes and gives us a large number of these ASCII text files. Now, you'll see things when it says, like rsyslog, regular file, no read permission. That means that there's no read permission for certain users, and then that's a file that's basically being kept for the system as opposed to being available for people to look at.
Okay. Great tip, great trick. Definitely, when the man says we're going to work with files inside of a Linux operating system, that is not a joke. That is a lot of what you do throughout your day as you work with Linux. So definitely take these to heart. Make sure you watch this episode a couple times. Get all these concepts down pat right up here. Lock them in. That being said, we are out of time for this episode. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.